Welcome back to the 2024-2025 school year. If you don't know me, I'm Bob Weber. I'm an educational strategist dealing predominantly with Algebra 1 and geometry. Want to share an overview feature that we've put together for you for this year that should make life a little bit easier. We're kind of proud of it, and I just want to make you aware of it. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this will look familiar to you. So this is our digital overview page in our Canvas course. And I want to go to Algebra 1, Unit 1. Unit 1, of course, is focused on linear expressions, equations, and inequalities. And just to kind of walk you through this a little bit, as well as have you see the slideshow. Basically, what we've done is we've tried to break the TEKS down. So you can see Algebra 1, Unit 1 preview, linear expressions, equations, and inequalities. The TEKS within Unit 1 as you start your school year. A5A is an essential readiness standard. That means it's a priority, going to be the heaviest focus in that unit. A5B through A12E are all supporting TEKS for a total of 6 TEKS that are in Unit 1. Unpacking the TEKS, there are a couple of documents you should take a look at there that we try and provide you some insight with. But basically what we've done is to take A5A and break it down using the commit partnership that we are now actively involved in. A5A, as I mentioned, is an essential readiness standard. It's going to be the most heavily tested, assessed, going to be also very important that you teach it with fidelity. It's solving linear equations involving the distributive property with the variable on both sides. So you can see from the commit partnership framework as far as breaking down the TEK, the knowledge are the nouns. Students need to know linear equations, distributive property, and the variables. The skills that they were used listed there, and basically they're solving that linear equation by completing all necessary distributions, combining like terms, and solving for the variable using inverse operations. Again, more breakdown of the TEK, A5A. The 2023 most recent tested problems that appeared on the STAR assessment. We don't have access yet to the 2024, but I will add those when we do. This A5A has been tested 12 times in the last 6 years. A5B, you can see, is also a supporting standard. Again, it's also solving equations when the variable is on both sides of the equation. These are linear inequalities, including those with variables on both sides requiring distributive property. A5B, you can see, is listed there, a little bit more information. A5B, as far as the most recent tested question, was 2018. Again, I do not have access to 2024 yet, but when I do, I will update this slide deck. A10A, adding and subtracting polynomials. We just touched base with this at the start of the school year. You're going to see this again in Unit 6 after the semester, but it is good to at least introduce combining like terms, adding, subtracting polynomials. Whoops. A10A, you can see 2022's most recent question that has been asked. A10C, polynomial divided by a monomial. So a single term into a polynomial, kind of teaching it probably with like a reverse distributive property. You can see the most recent question of that from 2023. A10D, rewriting expressions using the distributive property. That's huge because you've already done that with solving with that problems, equations that involve the distributive property already. And you can see the most recent question there. And A12E, solving mathematics and scientific formulas and other literal equations for a given variable. Again, the concept of inverse operations, what you do to one side of your equal sign, you can do to the other, comes into play with A12E. Our data, not a lot of data on this, interestingly enough. again, when you're talking supporting TEKS, it's not going to be as heavily tested. Um, I guess I would comment that I think there's some degree of consistency, especially amongst the A5A, the essential readiness, from our assessment to the STAR assessment. Vocabulary terms that you need to make sure that students, I would strongly suggest a word wall, starting that from the beginning of the year. Common misconceptions. These are things that your students, will struggle with a little bit. I'm not going to go through this. You have an opportunity to read through that yourselves. But these are things that students will do to make mistakes. So you need to be aware of that, what to look for. Vertical alignment, you can see that this is closely aligned. A5A, solving linear equations, with A 8.8C from the 8th grade, model and solve one variable equations. 711A from the 7th grade, model and solve one variable two-step equations. And 610A, model and solve one variable one-step equations. So there is a vertical alignment and articulation going up from 6th, 7th, 8th into Algebra 1, particularly for this readiness standard. We're spending 16 days on this. The dates are August 13th to September 4th. We do have our beginning of the year map testing as well in this unit. So you can see the breakdown of days with the emphasis on A5A, 4 days for the essential readiness. Instructional strategies. We are advocating that you do some building thinking classrooms work on this. That is linked on the pacing calendar. Also, this lends itself to a blended instruction, particularly with the A5A. You could maybe do a choice board or a must-do, may-do type of assignment. We do a heavy emphasis on this one with Desmos after the initial first week, because then kids hopefully will have their technology in place. Language supports that you might want to utilize. I'm sorry, you can see here which expression is equivalent to, combining like terms. Basically what we've selected as some of the key phrases that you and your students will use. Resource showcase. I do want to go with this. One of the new resources we are advocating heavily this year is Carnegie. And we have access through that, through a grant at the middle school levels. High schools, this is actually in a drive that we put together for you. So Carnegie put together some slides here, solving linear equations that I really, really like. And I would use this as my instructional tool. If you notice on this, it has a warm-up, solving equations for X, and then it talks about what learning goals, the essential question, and basically gets into that concept of keeping a balance of both sides of your equation. What you do to one side of the equal sign, you are doing to the other sign. I know that Carnegie and we don't test the properties themselves, but there's nothing wrong with conceptually making kids understand that when you add a value to both sides of an equation, that's the addition property of equality. When you subtract on both sides of the equation, that's a subtraction. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. So I understand you're not going to necessarily teach these as specific properties, but you're going to teach the concept of maintaining the balance on both sides of the equal sign. So would strongly advocate you take a look at the Carnegie slides here. If you're looking for a slide deck that's already prepared for you, this is a good one. It might be a little more detailed than what you want, but it can be utilized for your instructional piece pretty heavily. Listed some procedural knowledge that you should share with your students in solving equations, get the variable by itself, and so forth. Our intervention extension activities that you can do and the dates that those are listed there, trying to differentiate your instruction. The pacing calendar, of course, will reflect on what the unit's going to look like. And this is linked so you can click on it and get right to the pacing calendar. And then, of course, our personnel that are there to help you. Again, I'm Bob Weber. I'm your secondary math strategist with Algebra 1. But LJ Petulia, if you know LJ, she's a whiz with instructional materials. And Christian Cranfell. Christian is so gifted in so many areas, but especially instructional strategies. So we're all here. If you need some additional assistance, please feel free to contact us.